Hello and welcome to episode 9 of When We Are Healed. I am super excited to introduce to you our guest today, my dear teacher, mentor, and friend, Carrie Triffet. Carrie is a multi-award winning author and international teacher who has written some of my absolute favorite spiritual books of all time, including her most recent one, The Frickin' Map is Upside Down. One of the things I really love and appreciate about Carrie is that her teachings are based on her own spiritual journey and direct experience. She's so honest and generous in sharing not just the profound wisdom and insights, but also the challenges and pitfalls. And she has this way of making them all so relatable and also funny. And today, she's here with a powerful transmission about nature, what it truly is, what it's teaching us, and what becomes possible when we embrace our place in the sacred oneness of all life. So let's dive in to our conversation with Carrie Triffet. Carrie, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So you've created many offerings and written so many books that's been really, really played a big part in my spiritual journey. And one of your most recent offering was this video series called Human Nature TV, which is on your Substack. Mm-hmm. And it has blown my mind in so many ways. So eye-opening, yet so comforting and empowering and exciting. All the messages that you're sharing about what nature really is and the divine consciousness and sacredness of all things. And I thought I will start by asking you, now like nature is, you live it, you breathe it, it's your teacher, you take care of this land, growing food and communicating with the elementals and the insects, the organisms. But what was your relationship with nature earlier in your life before nature came into your life and became your teacher in this way?
I had no connection at all to nature. I did not feel like I was a part of nature in any way, and I was very uncomfortable in the natural world. So on those rare moments, because I was a city kid and then a suburb kid, which is the same thing as a city kid, which I didn't realize, I thought, there's nature. We have grass in front of the house, It's not nature. Yeah, I was very nervous around nature. It just all that wildness, all that unpredictability. I didn't relate to it at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that. I'm also a city kid and suburb kid, living in New York City for 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Before I moved to Portland 3 years ago. So I can totally relate to that. And when and how did the shift begin to happen for you?
It must have happened when we took on this piece of land, which is right here on the farm. It's not our farm. It's not our land that we took on. We wanted to grow some food. We wanted somewhere that we could just sit with a glass of wine and watch the sunset, because we have an adorable little apartment, really, but it's surrounded by concrete. And we missed it. We missed having somewhere. So there was this piece of land that was available. And it was a slow process. We didn't know anything about nature. We didn't know anything about gardening. I actually can't say exactly how and when it happened, but nature. Well, I one of the episodes in that series, and I think I also wrote about it in the last book that I Yeah, I wrote about it in the frickin' map, where nature basically came and started talking to me. And that was the massive transformation in my understanding of my place in the universe and nature's place in the universe, and that I am indeed a part of everything. And I can't even express how that turned my worldview, not just upside down, but inside out, and healed this rift that I didn't even know was present.
Oh, so to the listeners who haven't watched that episode yet, can you share a little more about what that experience of nature speaking to you was like? And
Well, I had questions. Actually, I did something stupid in the garden, and we had already begun to realize that there were nature spirits and elementals are actual things, beings. And that was not a part of my understanding at all, coming from California. But I live in England, for anybody that doesn't know, and England is chock full of nature spirits and beings that are alive and present and yeah. And so I had, as far as I knew, I had accidentally offended some of them. And so I received the advice from a friend to just apologize to nature. Just say I made a mistake and I'm a slow learner and, please forgive me. So I wasn't expecting an answer. I sat down in the greenhouse right after receiving that advice, and I just explained, I don't know what I'm doing, and I hope you'll forgive me. And then I went about my business. And very shortly after that, I got the most beautiful, incredible, um, conversation with nature, actually. And when you receive a conversation or words, if you are someone who has never received these things, it's a full body, mind, body, spirit, energy field experience, right? So the very first thing that happened is that I was just, my field and my body and my mind were completely enveloped by love. And I was just, fiddling around in the garden. I think I was planting out some flowers or something like that. And and that just was like, wow. Because not only is that, you know, it's the gift of a lifetime when love enters your being in that way, but also the shock, because I did not know that nature was of the divine. Part of my discomfort with nature was the fear that, they're like nasty things, or not even nasty things, but definitely things that aren't of the light, put it that way, you know? And wow, was I mistaken about that. So another thing that happens in that kind of communication is that very little of it comes in words, that the words are the least of what you are given. I got a few sentences, and then I got full, rich context that caused me to understand whole giant concepts that were being put forward to me. So I saw that, because I was asking about, does nature have a preference of one being over another? That I think what I was asking about at the time was Dutch elm disease. So the fungus that kills an entire species of trees, we think it's bad. Of course we do, because it's killing all these trees. So does nature see it that way? Does nature favor one amazing rose, a flower, something that has an incredible, exquisite scent and beauty? Does it prefer that to like some stinkweed over there, you know, that I just wanted to know. I wasn't even asking nature. I was just sort of um, musing to myself as I was gardening. And then I got the answer was that all of life is the beloved. That was a sentence. And then I was shown in the mind, body, spirit, energy field past understandings of me, because it's always exactly what you yourself will understand, right? The context is always your context so that you understand it. I got to see that exactly what that means. All of life is the beloved. And it showed me the inside of the life experience of that community of fungus. I got to be whatever the name of the fungus is that gives Dutch elm disease. And I felt that it's not evil. It's just extremely focused on its needs. And what happens to its host is not part of its awareness. So that was a very interesting thing. And I got to feel that the love and the life force of nature is what is sacred. And that's what nature is concerned with, is the sacredness of all life, not the bodies that house that life. The bodies come and go and they all get recycled in perfect order. So nature is never going to prefer a person over a deer or a butterfly over it's like if they die, they die. The life force is the thing that is so filled with joy and holiness and oneness, and that's what nature is concerned with. And so that was my first answer, and I went, whoa, this is amazing. And then I went back to gardening and I thought, I wonder, I still wasn't talking directly to nature, right? I was just sort of thinking as you do while you're doing things. And here I am planting out, we're talking about like the incredible grandeur and wildness and the logic, the sacred logic underneath the wildness of nature. And here I am planting out tidy little rows of flowers in my flower bed. And I thought, what about people? That's great for all the animals and everything, but what about us people who prefer to yank out the weeds and put in 6 whatever it was I was planting at the time, and the voice was quite amused. The same very soft feminine voice. And that was a surprise also. It's like people talk about Mother Nature, but it's like, oh, you're a lady. Um, and you could hear the amusement in the voice, and it said, humans are the beloved too. That was all it said. And that is what blew not just my mind, but like my entire mind, body, spirit, energy field into a completely different awareness of what we are, who we are, where we belong. And that has never left me. That single conversation really changed everything.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting goosebumps all over. I'm tearing up. I've heard this story before, but it just never ceases to amaze me. Because I think so much of us who are nature lovers, shall I say, who love being outdoors and care about the environment, and um, we do our best to like recycle, like. But I think there's a lot of guilt that a lot of us carry in us for the state of the planet and the role that us humans played in that, and in the seeming practical reality that we can't seem to um, go about our day-to-day life without producing some sort of garbage or waste, or um, buying going to the store and buying something that we need, but then it comes with all these like packaging or, so, and that's just a very small example, but I know that
No,
I've
it's
carried a
actually
lot
an
of guilt.
important example.
Yeah, I've carried a lot of guilt um, for the collective and myself. Even though we a lot of us admire and respect nature, there's also maybe a mistaken sense of humans being separate from that and are the evil, evil or ignorant, whatever race that's causing harm, and yet we're part of that race. And what does that mean? Um, and there's a tendency to blame other people or corporations or whatever entities that seem to be doing the big damage. But the message that you receive from Mother Nature is saying that literally all of life is sacred and is the beloved. Even the ones, even when we, out of our ignorance or limited levels of consciousness, whatever that is, even when we are appear to be um, causing harm to nature.
It's such an important point. Really, such an important point. The guilt, like all guilt, is misplaced, as you say. It's not helpful, and it's not accurate because that's not how nature sees it. Because nature is of the divine, and that's not how love sees it. Love and life, if they're not exactly the same thing, maybe life is the product of love. I am not an expert in in how the universe works, but they are definitely intimately related, and they do not see it that way. So I am aware of that very prevalent idea in society that, oh, it would just be better if humanity just, I don't know, if we all just died and left nature alone to get on with it. A, that's not how nature sees it. And B, that's not how it is. Humans are so sacred and so deeply, we very much have a role to play. And that's not to say that we shouldn't take responsibility for the things we have done and are still doing to defile nature and the planet and each other and ourselves. Of course we should. And wherever we can make progress in healing that or in becoming more responsible in those ways, we should certainly do that, but absolutely minus the guilt. We belong here.
I'm just remembering one experience I had with you when I was doing a one-on-one session with you several years ago, and we meditated and tapped into Mother Nature, like the Earth's energy, and I was just struck by how incredibly forgiving and loving it was. And I didn't even know that I was capable of like tapping into energy in that way until I had that experience with you. And B, I was so surprised that because I was so sure that Mother Earth would be angry at us,
Just like God,
just
right?
like God. Exactly. Exactly. And yet I received the most incredibly loving, forgiving, nurturing energy beyond words that completely blew my mind and also helped me start to shift my preconceived ideas about nature and humans and the separateness that I thought was real. So if someone were to just walk up to you and ask like, "Hey Carrie, like what is nature? Like what is the answer you would like to give these days?"
Well, the first thing that springs to mind, I'm not sure it's it's accurate, but the first thing I would say is nature is all that is. it might not be accurate, but I do feel like nature is not just a bunch of plants on the earth, you know? Nature is the all the laws of the cosmos, the stars in the heavens. It's all of that is nature. Why wouldn't it be?
Oh, it's all of it. It's all of it.
Yeah.
So, in our limited perception, there appears to be a separation of nature versus something that's artificial or man-made. Um, and yet, when I sat down and thought about where exactly does something that was a pure natural resource, where does that exactly turn into a man-made thing? For example, if we cut down a tree and create a chair out of the tree, is
Mhm.
the chair still part of nature or is it man-made now? And or if we take minerals out of the earth and create metal out of it to use it for equipments, tools, whatever that is, and machines, at what point does that become something that's man-made, quote unquote? Um, and are robots and AIs part of nature too, or is that is there a separation there, and where does that separation begin? I mean, this is kind of a philosophical question, but I was just curious to hear your take on that.
Mm. Well, I think if you substitute the word oneness for nature, that answers half of it right there. That the wood that was a living tree and now it is no longer living in the sense of a tree being alive, but it is still an intrinsic part of oneness because everything that's here is, whether it's seen or unseen, then there is no distinction. There is no separation. What there is that there have been human beings applying their own creativity to what they find in nature. I mean, sometimes it doesn't look like creativity, but I mean, when your own inspiration to do something with the things that you have seen and have come across. Um, when a bear climbs a tree and breaks off the branch because the bear is too heavy to be up the tree, or elephants are incredibly destructive when they go trampling through places. They are part of nature, so they make changes to things. They kill things in the process. The only difference between them and humanity is that humanity, well, the scale at which we do that is kind of breathtaking. But humans will take that tree and say, I think this would make a particularly good thing that I can then sit on. It's that form of consciousness that is beyond, different and beyond the rest of the inhabitants of this planet. Am I answering that question? When it comes to AI well, robots, definitely, they're all made up of, somebody has dug up rare earth minerals to the detriment of nature and the communities in which those things occur, and they've been put into computers and robots and microchips and all that stuff. Yeah, AI is another. Yeah, that's another discussion. That's a very interesting discussion. I'm not sure I have any of the answers to that one. I would tend to want to say, no, AI is separate. But that's, in some ways, that's silly, isn't it?
So one of the most memorable moments, there's so many from your TV series that that really affected me deeply was your story about the caterpillars in your garden and how they were decimating. I don't know if it was cabbage. I forgot what you were growing, but
Cauliflowers.
cauliflowers. Yes, 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 cauliflowers. And yet you had this experience of by like learning to see the caterpillars differently, then the relationship shifted. Could you share that story with the listener?
Yeah, this was quite early in my gardening experience. It was, I think, our first year of gardening. So we had no idea what we were doing. And I also, it was before I had the conversation with nature. And it was before it was what kick-started my questioning of what is a weed exactly, and what is a pest. And in so many ways, I have since come to see the beauty and the value and possibly even the superiority of weeds, you know, which is a whole other discussion. And the completely fallible argument that labels something as a pest. But then back then I hadn't gotten to that place yet. All I saw was that I took my eye off the ball for 24 hours, only 24 hours. And when I came back, my poor cauliflowers were completely infested by 3 or 4 or 5 entirely different kinds of pests. And I knew that I didn't want to kill out there, and I knew I was very much wanting to rise beyond enemy consciousness in all parts of my life. So that had been my focus in everywhere at that point. And so I was very aware and very, very noticed when I was starting to see those bugs as enemies. And I went, well, this is interesting because I've been very careful to not go to that place of us versus them in any area of my existence lately, and yet here I am doing this. Anyway, so so I'm trying to just squirt water at them because I am not killing anybody, and it sort of knocked some people off the plant, and then they would hop right back on, and it just wasn't happening. And so after doing the first several plants, and we had a lot of cauliflowers. So after the first several plants, I finally went, okay, I know that that this enemy consciousness thing is starting to creep back into my consciousness. I'm aware of it here. I'm surprised that it's creeping back in, but here it is, I should do something about this rather than just go, I'll do something about it. But first, I need to get rid of these enemies. I need to get them off my plants, and then I'll do something about it. And so after the first several plants, I went, no, I need to do this now. So I still have the sprayer in my hand, and I just stood stock still, closed my eyes, and my brain didn't want to do it. When you're trying to forgive something, and your stuff is going, no, it's an enemy. And I just persisted until all of these like slimy, gross little creatures, because at this point they were like making little webs and having babies and just icky stuff all over my plants. All of them had an infinite right to be that was every bit as complete and sacred as my infinite right to be. And then from there, I could feel, and that, that I had to convince myself to stand still for that. But I got there. And from that point, I could feel into their holiness and their oneness with me, that the life that runs through those bugs is the same sacred life that runs through me. So again, this was before that nature conversation. So it was brand new to me, all of this stuff. And and it was beautiful. I just stood there with it for I don't know how long. And then I opened my eyes and I got back to work because I had another X number of cauliflowers to do. And when I lifted up the next leaf on the next plant, about 80% of the bugs were gone. And when I looked back, and that was true of all the rest of the plants. And when I looked back at the ones I had just done, 80% of the bugs were gone. There were only just a few here and there. And that blew my mind. Well, did it? I wasn't surprised, actually. I recall being unsurprised. I mean, it blows your mind because you go, oh, wow, a miracle. This was a miracle. But I was unsurprised because I was still bathed in the holiness of those beings. And it's always surprising when miracles show up in the physical world. It's just you don't expect it, even though you should, But there it was in the physical world. That I had shifted timelines or something, and most of the bugs were not there. There were definitely no infestations. And by the following day, there were no bugs there at all. So there you go. But that same day, as if that one wasn't interesting enough, Steve, my husband, came down to the garden and he looked in the greenhouse. I hadn't been to the greenhouse yet. And all the tomato plants were in there. And he went, that's funny. We have I don't know, 3 times more tomatoes than we did yesterday. Like in this new timeline in which holiness had lifted everything, we now had incredibly productive tomato plants, which were now just like the fruits were just like red and hanging in bunches off of the plant. So there you go. I've learned a lot in the garden.
That's so I don't get tired of the story. And the fact that your awareness of the holiness of all beings allow the tomato plants to flourish, like,
Isn't that bizarre? I mean,
right?
you cannot predict the fantastic side effects of recognition of holiness. That's the conclusion that I've come to. Just accept it and move on. It's great. You can't go, I need more tomatoes. I think I will I think I'll decide that everybody's holy. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah, no agenda. And oh, well, you're very familiar with how much I used to struggle with pests and bugs.
Yes.
I'm a little bit proud to share with you that my relationship with critters have been shifting over the past few years, and your story with the caterpillars has been inspiring me to talk to them. And so we had this like ant infestation that seems to happen in the spring, and the last one I really did not want to put down like taro, like the ant poison. I really did not want to. And they were just like so all over the place. I was sprinkling cinnamon, but they were, they didn't really care about the cinnamon. They're just keep marching right along and covering our kitchen counter and all that. And so I just had a thought to just talk to them and say, I would really appreciate it if you guys could go find a home somewhere. Like I would rather not put down poison and poison you. So please consider that. And I kid you not, over the next couple of days, I just started to see less and less ants until they weren't there anymore. I'm surprised, but also not surprised in the same way.
Exactly.
And I also heard a friend of mine describe an exact same experience that her friend had with the ants, and it's incredible. It's just like it's incredible.
Is it? Every other member of nature knows this stuff. it's only we who are rediscovering it from scratch, that we are part of nature, that all all of nature is conscious. Probably even the wood that went into the chair. Even the rock that went into your fireplace, it's all conscious. It all has a certain form of consciousness. Not it's not like ours, but it's still real. And they're not always going to agree to do what you want. I mean, sometimes you can talk to the deer or talk to the moles and say, "Could you not dig this up?" And they'll go, "Yeah, well, we like to dig it up." Or, "Those berry bushes are delicious. We're going to keep coming back." But you've had the conversation, They of course you can. Why not? You
Yeah,
can you can reach out and connect with another part of your one self.
exactly. And one of the most fun and profound takeaways from your video series for me was that you could communicate with all of nature,
Mm.
whether it's like insects, animals, fungus, or the
Sky.
sky, water. Oh my God, I've been talking to the sky ever since I saw your episode about the sky. And I kid you not, it's like blessing me with sunshine, like every day in this very rainy, cloudy Portland fall. And I'm starting to see beautiful sunrises and sunsets that are kind of surprisingly hard to come by in Portland because it can be so cloudy. And I just feel so excited like a little kid and be like, thank you so much, Sky. This is amazing. Thank you for 3 minutes of sunshine. I'm having so much fun just talking to the sky.
Mm.
Um, and just like receiving the beauty of it. And now, like even when it's cloudy and rainy, I'm genuinely appreciative that all this rain is helping the plants like flourish like crazy. And um it's so nice to be able to be in that space of like I don't feel so alone, even just taking a walk around
Mm.
the neighborhood, like I used to when I lived in the city. Like I feel the presence of life everywhere. And I started to eat my breakfast and sometimes lunch outside too.
Mm.
Um, and I feel so much calmer and more relaxed. And again, not so alone when I'm eating by myself, but I'm outside. Uh, so thank you for all that transmission and teaching that we can talk to everything, literally. Everything is
Yeah.
consciousness. Um,
And it might very well answer in its own way. Yeah.
yes. So, with all this awareness and wisdom and experience that you have, what are some of the ways that you and Steve practice differently in your gardening and taking care of your land that's different from like a conventional wisdom of how you're supposed to garden or take care of nature, so to speak?
Well, this has been an ongoing learning, and mostly it's learning what not to do. Um, Basically, I've become incredibly aware that as I have, we've kind of let nature um, take the lead out on the land. We call it the half wild garden, and it was half wild, and and then these very tidy bits that we garden, and it's a beautiful combination. It really is. Um, but it doesn't stay half wild for long because nature is inexhaustible and so muscular and so filled with vitality, especially here, that when we said that, it said, "Well, all right then," and and it's basically been turning that piece of land back into a woodland, really without our permission. Um, it hasn't been a woodland in a very long time. It began as just another paddock for grazing animals on this farm before the people before us took it over and turned it into something else, and then we took it over from them. But there's trees all over the place where they shouldn't be, and brambles everywhere, and like it's crazy. Um, so that's a mistake. They were having to try and repair because there's very little sunlight for us to grow our vegetables anymore. But I have become very clear on the that nature has all the answers. Nature does everything correctly. There is no waste with nature. Everything recycles. Everything has purpose. Everything can thrive. Everything is abundant. And if it's not abundant, nature wipes it away and recycles it and starts it again. And things are constantly upgrading themselves. They if if Monsanto Bayer comes out with glyphosate or whatever they come out with, and it kills things for a couple of seasons, nature will just adapt to go around it, so it only kills a few, and then it doesn't kill any, and then they have to come out with something stronger because nature has moved on. That's what nature does in every area. So that's perfect. That's the way it needs to be. And it has become really clear to me that any form of gardening is a very unnatural process that sort of straitjackets nature for our own preferences. And there's it's not that I'm not that's not a big judgment. It's just me trying to get more into tune and more into flow with the way nature actually is. So I have been very much entranced with Japanese natural gardening, and two different forms of it that I have tried, tried and failed at. And there are many reasons why. But basically, both of the people who came up with these two forms back in the 1930s in Japan, both of them had awakenings, specifically awakened to the perfection of nature. And then they were able to tell what needed to be done from within nature. When they were such a part of nature that they could then learn how to farm and how to grow food without getting in nature's way, so that they could not exactly partner with nature, but not fight nature in the way that the rest of us do. So I really wanted to do that. And I'm just not there yet. And yeah, so a great many trial and error mistakes, and I'm still making mistakes. It's an aspirational thing.
Yeah, I'm just reminded of how you describe nature as our teacher, because it's such a patient teacher too, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
patient, loving, but if you're a little slow, it'll just take the lead and get on with it, and then you have to skip along behind and go, no, wait, that's not what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just remembering, I think something you mentioned about, I don't know if it was tomato plant or another one, but the conventional gardening wisdom is to kind of prune the some of the new growths to encourage
Yeah.
the nutrients to go to uh, the branches that already have the tomato fruits growing on them.
Yeah.
But you found that the tomatoes experience a little bit of pain when the pruning happens, and also they really don't want to be pruned.
Yes. Well, of course they experience pain. You're pinching you're pinching out their growth, you know. They yeah, plants have a complete nervous system. It's just different from ours, you know. They are, yeah, they're amazing beings. They really are. Um so I didn't want to do that. And I do that as little as possible. Now, a few seasons on, I do it somewhat. I wasn't doing it at all back then. Um, and although it results in fewer tomatoes and lots of growth all over the place, way too much growth, actually, um, that was okay with us. We would rather plant more tomato plants, allow them to express in something as close to their natural way as we can. But again, gardening is a very unnatural process. So there's only so much expression you can allow. And we also leave all plants in the ground much longer than any other gardener would, because we want them to live as much of a natural life and a natural death as possible without like yanking them out of the ground when it's a perfectly healthy plant, because now, according to my planting calendar, I need to put in the next crop. You have to do a little bit of that stuff if you want to grow food. But I just try to be extremely conscious of each decision, and to do as little of it as possible, to work with the plants and do as little as possible. I had been, you start plants in module trays, which they don't want. If you were to ask a plant, all it wants is to live as natural a life as possible, to grow up, to make fruit that has baby seeds, and then to die and let the seeds drop where they are and grow up again. They don't want to be potted on into bigger and bigger pots, and then when the right time comes, you put them in the ground. They don't want any of that stuff. But we need to do that stuff. Steve and I, need to do that stuff in most cases. It doesn't work for us to just put the seeds in the ground and hope for the best. So, we just sort of explain that to the plants and their elementals, and they're okay with it. It's not ideal, but it's okay. And so anyway, so we would have module trays of all these tiny plants getting ready to be planted out. And some of them come on faster than others, and some of them seem kind of weak, right? You always sow too many and then you take the strongest. That's the conventional wisdom. So what do you do with all the rest of the little plants? So Steve, in particular, can't bear to, throw on the compost heap a little plant whose only crime is that it took off a little bit slower than something else. So he's forever creating new beds for all of these plants to grow in. And I'll tell you what, this is another one of nature's lessons. Those, without fail, pretty much, are always the strongest of all the plants that we sow, because like nature is thrilled that we did, what nobody else tends to do by letting them live.
Wow. Goosebumps, goosebumps. I'm just contemplating if more and more of us awaken to this awareness of the sacredness of all life, including ourselves, and started actively communicating with the plants and elementals and all beings around us, like what kind of a society and world that could create. And in your final episode, you talk about the golden age that's on the horizon. And
it's more than the horizon now.
yeah, it's here now.
It's a few years later now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to those of us who are not familiar with that idea of the new earth or the golden age, um, or ascension from 3D to 5D, they're described in many different ways, but how would you describe that to someone who is not familiar with this idea?
Wow. Okay. Small questions you're asking
What
me.
is happening? What is happening? What is happening in on Earth right now?
Okay. Well, humanity as a collective, I believe, decided a few decades ago that um, not only did we not want to head into self-destruction, which we were headed towards, that we are tired of living in, to use a sort of Course in Miracles style language, that we're tired of living in a world made of fear, that we really want to get back to knowing our own true divine identity and that of everyone else. And we want to live on a planet in peace, like real peace, not the absence of war, and in harmony with all beings and with nature itself. And again, this is the entire collective on some very subconscious level, you know. And so many of us showed up for these times. Millions, many millions of us showed up specifically for these times, for this transition period. And all of those things that you may be aware of, like, you know, the Mayan calendar ending in 2012 and all that sort of stuff. And even indigenous prophecies, which sound a bit doom laden, you know. Actually, they all describe this transition period from fear into love, and it's happening, and it doesn't look very pretty, and, and it's incredibly messy, but it's going on.
I think if you're immersed in the news cycle, you might have a completely different view that everything is going down the toilet. That's the messy part that you described. But what are some tangible ways that you're seeing that this new Earth, this golden age is here, or it's coming, or it's growing
Well,
stronger?
love is definitely here and present and anchored firmly on this planet in ways that it hasn't been able to do for I have no idea how long, you know, millennia, possibly. I don't know. Um, it was sort of shut out of this reality um, by us because we have been so confused and so attracted to the products of fear and so afraid to leave them behind that, you know, love is not going to go where there's no room for it. So as all this has been changing and all the fear-based, the frequencies have been rising, basically, of this planet. If you want to speak of it in those terms, it might be a little bit easier for some people to grasp and more unfamiliar for others who don't think of things in terms of frequency. But everything, you know, this is an electromagnetic planet in an electromagnetic universe, and we ourselves, along with every other being on Earth, are electromagnetic beings. So our thoughts are electromagnetic. The our cells, which are water and salt, you know, we're batteries, and we respond and we react and we create electromagnetically. So and the same is true of the Earth. So as the Earth's frequencies rise higher and higher, higher and higher consciousness, higher and higher into love, we, because we are part of nature and part of the Earth, we rise at the same time, we rise as well. So the golden age in which you look around and there is, brotherly love and caring for one another and respect for the earth and all of that, clearly that's not the majority right now. So what is happening is that tangible proof arises from the inside out, from each one of us, as we transition ourselves into higher consciousness and clear out all our old stuff. Because, of course, a great deal of what you're seeing out there is not necessarily the chaos created by chaos makers, although there's plenty of that. It is that secrets can't stay hidden. Secrets and lies are getting pushed to the surface because love is underneath them going, the lower frequencies aren't supported anymore. They can't stay anymore. So all of that stuff is coming up into the light, and it's not pretty. It's quite shocking, a lot of it. So it's a good idea to be able to look at the broader picture and not think, oh my God, we're just going to hell in a handbasket. It is definite transition. It is definite love on the way into tangible form. But it depends on us how quickly that actually happens in as a majority event or series of events is all down to us, and we're still working on it.
Yeah. And what would you say is the most important thing that each of us can do to help with this process, this transition into a world of love?
I think to get in an extremely humble way, to get comfortable with our own divinity, our own divine worth, and our own natural power. That may sound a little abstract. But that process of being able to pull what's inside out into form, that yearning, that internal yearning that says, what I see out there does not reflect the highest ideals of humanity. I know, I sense, not my opinion, but I sense deeply that we are capable of so much better than this, so much more than this.
Yes.
And I know in my heart and I know in every cell of my being that the earth is sacred and must be respected and protected. And what I see around me is not that, but I want a future in which that is the case for myself, my children, my grandchildren, So that inner push, it's stronger than a wish, the more we can rest with growing confidence, because, we have our own stuff to get over that says, I'm not divine, but as we can let that stuff be cleared out and just rest quietly on a regular basis in our own divine place in this universe, let's just call it that, there's something that starts to build that I feel that gives the juice of creativity to these desires and knowings about what should be in the world. And it's not necessarily that you yourself would be the one who invents the machine that cleans up the oceans, But I mean, not to make the mistake of thinking that, let's say, you have this strong desire to see pure, sparkling, clean oceans and abundant life, happy to live within the oceans again, like it was before we were born, long before we were born. Excuse me. That desire, coupled with you knowing of your divine connection to all that is the ripple that goes out and is perhaps it moves its way through the energy field of somebody out there now, future, past, who knows, who is the one who invents the machine that cleans up the ocean. It's like we don't need to know, but that is a very real process, and it's down to each one of us. And I think we're doing it.
Yes. Wow. Oh, thank you. I'm in tears. I'm in tears. And I also have heard that they've discovered a way to use a certain type of fungus to help clean up oil spills. It's just like
Oh
amazing.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
that's oyster mushrooms, which are also
Yeah.
delicious. Although don't eat the ones that
Don't eat the ones that.
yeah, that eat the oil. Yeah, there are
Yeah.
actually even bacteria that have discovered how to eat plastic in landfills. I mean, talk about
Yes.
nature.
Yes. Oh my
Don't
God.
worry about nature. Nature has
Nature will be fine.
nature covered. Yeah.
Oh, oh, Carrie, thank you so much for all the wisdom and light and everything that you shared with us today. I would love to keep talking to you for like two more hours, but since we're almost out of time, um, what are you up to these days, and how can people find you?
Ah, well, I occasionally write things on Substack about this transitional world that we find ourselves in, and that's pretty much all I'm doing publicly at this moment. I'm I'm gardening. I'm baking sourdough, and I do a little bit of you know mentoring and that sort of thing. But that's basically it.
Uh, so again, everyone, I highly, highly, highly recommend checking out Carrie's Substack. I'll put the link in the show notes. And all of the entire series, the Human Nature TV that we talked about, is available for free on her Substack. It's 12 episodes of half an hour each. Every episode's so worth watching. It transformed my ideas, relationship to nature, and yes, I highly recommend that. And so Carrie also has this wonderful online course called True Natural Abundance, which is actually tied to the fact that abundance is nature's way. Like nature is so incredibly limitlessly abundant, and we very innocently believe that we're cut off from that, and it's like a lot of us are doing the work to clear out all these old beliefs about what abundance is and how it comes to us, and money and worthiness and all that. And Carrie's class has really helped me shift my ideas about money and abundance and worthiness and value to the point where I am more able to be aware of the ways in which I am being loved and supported, uh, and that it can come in all forms, not just money. And and so I highly, highly recommend Carrie's True Natural Abundance course as well, and I'll put the link in the show notes as well. So thank you. And there's a meditation that you would like to take us through to close.
Yeah, I thought it would be kind of fun to do a little bit of a meditation that I spoke of in the water episode of the series that you're talking about, in which we tune in to the cells of our body, which are at least 70% water, and we get in touch with the waters that we are, which are part of the waters of the entire planet, and just see how that feels. So let's go. Okay. So we just close our eyes, and I like to work with the breath. I've long since programmed my breath with the automatic presence of the divine. You can do that too for yourself. Just anytime you begin to breathe, there is the understanding that you are breathing divine love into and through wherever you direct the breath. And in this case, we're just going within the body, down to the cellular level. Where the light that each cell naturally produces, because that's part of its job, sparkles as it meets and recognizes the love that we breathe. Entering the water in each and every cell. The water that is intimately connected with all the waters of the planet. Water which is in itself divine, in itself intelligent. And rejoicing in the meeting of love's breath with the love that is inherent in the water that you are. And just resting quietly together. In this loving intelligence. And we can thank the cells and the water within them. thanking the planetary waters as well, the rivers and oceans, the streams, the rain. Before we bring our awareness back to just the overall body in general, into the place in which we are sitting right now. And thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to come check out our Substack at whenwearehealed.com, where you can subscribe to keep in touch and get show notes emailed to you. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you in the next episode.